Welcome to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
Hello, everyone. Tamara here. Welcome to the show. Today's guest is Amanda Koss, and we'll be talking about dating like a dude and being a magnetic person or not. If you like this episode, be sure to tell your friends about it as well. Thanks for joining me today, Amanda.
Thank you for so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here today with you.
Yes, I think this will be a good one. And the first episode of this season talked about how to date kind of like you're doing it, but a lot of people don't realize or do it this way. So how about you describe what you mean by when you say date like a dude? Like, what does that encompass, or how do you see it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So date like a dude is more just being free-spirited about dating. So most women, not all, but typically most women have an agenda. They want marriage. They want to be in a commitment. Those are the certain things that make them feel comfortable while they're dating. And so they tend to hate singlehood and they hate the dating process. And there are certain specific reasons why that I get into quite a bit on my Instagram and my blog. But it's really about learning how to turn that around and to go into it with a different mindset where you're actually there to enjoy the moment, enjoy each person, because that's when we can really authentically attract someone that is right for us, that really complements us in the most authentic way possible. And I spent about the last 9 years researching this because I did follow all the rules and I did get married. And when it was a complete mismatch and it was a complete disaster, a big question of mine was, I followed all the rules. Like, why, how did I get to this like dead end zone? So I really, it bothered me so much that I really took a lot of the inner work that I learned during that time, because it was kind of a devastating process to be in a dead end marriage and then going through divorce. So I went through like therapy and I've done a lot of inner work. So there's a lot that I learned that I applied to my whole journey of figuring out how to date in a way that is authentic. That's going to be more fun, more magnetic, and you just enjoy the process instead of trying to get to the end goal. And so there's a lot that goes into it that I like to go, share with my audience on Instagram and change that up a bit and make it more fun, more breathable, instead of like this, I gotta have marriage, I gotta have the commitment, and you totally end up with the wrong person.
Yeah. And I just talked to someone else about this today. She's like, as soon as she likes a guy, which like you were saying, most women do, they start focusing only on them and worrying about them. And then they start seeing if they're husband potential and all that stuff. So yeah.
Right.
And they can tell when you're doing it. And I talk about attachment styles too. If they're an avoidant attachment style, they're going to like run away from that the second they can feel it. So
yeah, absolutely. Though I love attachment style theories. I've looked into those quite a bit. And all of that is just so helpful to really allowing a woman who, you can rightfully want those things. Those are all great goals to have, but to go through the process of dating, being single, like it's the happening place. Like, this is actually like really an amazing space to be in, and it feels great and it's fun. And there aren't rules coming down on you from society, which is where it's all kind of, constructed, where, you can't be this free spirit because it could mean, something potentially, excuse me, like threatening to our, let's say like, the word like being, like you're a heartbreaker, or you just, you date a lot, and, there's a lot of like negative connotations around it. And a lot of women are pretty vulnerable to those, labels. So it can be a scary place. And that's why a lot of us have a lot of anxiety around being single, because if you're not if you don't have the goal to get married or settle down right away, then you look promiscuous, or you look, any low vibe word you want to use, like that's literally what a lot of women tend to fear. And it's a shame, because we really don't, like that's all made up. That's not even a real thing.
Yeah. I mean, that is pretty much the purpose of my podcast too, is to talk about like women like sex just as much as men, and there shouldn't be any stigma or shame or any of that. And we don't have any of that here. And this is educational. A lot of people learn that very thing. So yeah, that's the whole point. So yeah, you're an example of how it could be and how it's fun.
As are you. I love that your podcast, it's really an amazing spot that women can, relearn and unpack a lot of the stuff that, many aren't even aware that like is, weighing on their mind. Like we've just, got to this planet and just kind of like sank into the societal role of like, oh, okay, like being single and, dating whoever I want at any time and not being in a commitment like means something horrible about myself. And we don't even think to question that and think like, well, where did that come from? Like, why is that a rule? But there's, an opposite gender that doesn't really have that role. So it's something to, to stop and question, to really, to see like that it's just it's an illusion. So it helps to just unpack that and like get that off your shoulders so you can, move in a more authentic way in your single life.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to give some examples of like what you do that's dating like a dude or being magnetic or your typical dating style? Like how do you interact with guys that they can tell the difference?
For sure. Gosh, let's see. So trying to think like, okay, so for example, let's say, I am an active participant on Tinder. I think it's a great site. A lot, it hasn't, kind of a bad reputation, but I think it's great. So Tinder, I've met some pretty awesome guys from Tinder. And so when I connect with one and start, getting to know them, vice versa, we have a great date, whatnot. The typical thing to do is to focus on one person. And again, like if you don't focus on one person, again, there's kind of like that creepy feeling of like, oh, you're going to be called like a certain name. That's going to make you look bad. Because I've actually seen that happen, amongst other women and like guys and stuff. And it's like, and, and it's actually like, I'm glad it does because, that's where I love getting into that conversation and really kind of like start opening up some minds rather than keeping them closed. But yeah, when, I connect with somebody and I like them and I get to know them, like I certainly love to go out with them and I love to get to know them and go out as far as however it feels great to go. Like I'll definitely do that. But, like it's really not the time to just stay focused on one person. Like it's really like the time to go against what you naturally are thinking, because again, that's conditioning, to keep your options open. So like, that's what I like to do. And I like to do just that. Even if I met someone really rad, like I literally will still continue to like, chit chat with other people because, a lot of the times also like the pressure builds like to make this one situation, this one person turn into a relationship. And that's where you kind of like can fall into the vibe of like, oh, like this is like the person and I'm going to wait for them because, the man may not be ready for that. And maybe you are, and then it just becomes like a waiting game. And if you're both not on the same page, then it's kind of a push-pull. And that that's not very magnetic behavior, in my opinion. So it's best to just keep things open which again, that's something that I like to do, like on Tinder.
Yeah, for sure. And then I talked about the attachment styles already, but if you're anxious attachment style, if you're not getting texts from the one guy you want to get texts from, you get all anxious. But if you have many people texting or contacting you, then it doesn't matter if one does, because another one probably will, or you can message them. So it's another way too. But yeah, I mean, this whole season is like, that's became the theme, is just, not trying to, like you're saying, just pick one and go there, because that's the season 3 opener. There are dating coaches that talk about the same thing. So, like, what have guys' reaction been when you're just like, as a magnetic person, like how would they describe it, or how have they could tell that or you just have a lot of interest, I guess would be one way. But yeah, I mean, I guess like how can men, how would you know that you're magnetic? It's just because you get lots of attention, or they say something, or like you just feel it? I know you mentioned mindset, like just kind of, I don't know, I'm trying to show more women that this is the way to go. So like what has your responses from guys, or how, like you just already said, dating is fun. So like, I guess say more about that, or like just your experiences in general.
Yeah. So like the magnetic part, how do I know when I am magnetic? It's more about my own energy, where I'm feeling like not so bogged down and weighed down by, like, I guess in my head, like, does this person like me? Am I going to get a text from him? Is he having fun with me on this date? Like a lot of those thoughts, they won't even be a factor. Like you kind of already have self-affirmed for, your self-worth, and more just about, like the type of person you are, your personality. And so, and usually, you feel light and you feel playful and you feel like, there really aren't many doubts in your head. I mean, I can't speak for like the first date jitters, because I'll still get them, and, I'll just kind of, I set my dates up to make that work for me. So it's not really a whole thing, but yeah, aside from that, like, I know I'm like in that vibe when I'm not questioning, like, if that person likes me, if, like I'm just more focused on having fun in the moment. Because when that is more of the goal, like you're there to get to know someone in like a fun, lighthearted way, because this is your first date. This is like, not the time to think if this person is a good match for forever, because you won't know that until later on. Like you got to give like some time. So, but the magnetism really helps when, it's more of like an inner game where you've done certain things on the inside to kind of show up in a way where you just feel like good to be there. Like you're just like, okay, I'm here. Like I'm ready to have fun. Like for example, like I don't do sit down dinner dates for first date. Like I like to do active dates. For one, I'm way too nervous. And like I'm not, I think I thrive more on active dates. Like, and it could just be something as small as like, hey, let's go meet up at a gelato shop and go walk down by the beach. Or if you live near a park or something, and like taking walks, or like a bike ride, or like, doing something where you're like in motion and the attention is off yourself and you're more in the moment. And you can really learn a lot about somebody when you're actively doing something together versus sitting down and listening to them talk about themselves, because half the time they're not even accurate. Like they'll contradict themselves like, a quarter of the way into your date of sitting down. It's like I just don't even ask people about themselves. I'm like, they'll show me. Like they'll just show me through their actions, the type of person they are. Like that's always worked very well for me. But yeah, definitely the goal is to really feel good within yourself first and show up that way on the date and make fun the priority.
Yeah. And be present, it sounds like too.
Yes.
Yeah. And then they do. Yeah. And they do say that like car rides are like the best way to like, not to say go on a date in a car, because that would be bad on the first date, but the fact that you're sitting like next to each other instead of looking at each other, people can like say more things. So like you're saying, if you're actively walking and you're both looking forward instead of worrying about, you're apt to say more stuff than if they're like looking directly at you, like you might be more revealing or something. So yeah, it's a good date idea.
Totally.
Yeah. I was to say, what else do you talk about on your Instagram? Or we can talk about how to reach you first and then say stuff after.
Oh, sure. So on my Instagram handle is date like a dude. But I like to dive into a lot of mindset. Cause we have to deal with ourselves first. Cause that's exactly what we're going to bring with us when we're on a date, when we're mingling with somebody. So I like to address that first. And a lot of it has to do with paying attention to our thoughts and the things that we say, because that's really going to give us a great mirror to what's going on inside. And we can move those things around. We can look at it, adjust them. You don't always have to figure out why they're there, but just having a general awareness of where your stance is on dating, flirting, all the steps that you can take within, the dating realm. It's all very important because that's what makes your magnetism higher or lower. So I like to just focus on you. Like that's where it all stems from. It's hardly ever about the other person because you're the creator of your experience and it's all going to come through your thoughts. And it's really helpful when you can align your thoughts and let go of the ones that aren't supporting your happiness. So it's really just, an inner game. And, so I talk about that a lot. That's the majority of it. And then secondary, there are certain things that I like in dialogue when you're talking to a guy on a first date, on a first conversation on a dating app, that I like to say to give as an example as to what would be something lighthearted instead of like serious and like, I'm here for marriage. Like I'm here for commitment. And I like to kind of flip that to where it's like, you're going into it again, being more present, a bit more playful, and just to enjoy.
And what's your take when they bring up sex? I've talked about this before. As to me, it's a compatibility thing. They're just trying to see if you both have high libidos, if that's the case or whatever it is. And it doesn't mean they want to have sex with you. I mean, they probably do, but not like immediately. It's not like you have to just because you talk about sex. But like, where do you? I assume you don't get offended either.
I love that question. Yeah, I love that. That's actually one of the best things about this whole present moment, lighthearted, magnetic stuff. It really is not being afraid to like have those conversations. Like if they come up, I always say like, I'd be offended if the guy didn't want to have sex with me. Like, of course he wants to. Like, you're attractive, like you're fun, you're great, you're a great person. And so it's like, why wouldn't they want to have sex with me? Like, why wouldn't they be attracted to me? So I like to always, I always feel that way when I get into conversations. So if it is somebody that looks attractive in their photos and, I usually like, I tend to be more flirty. Like I'm more of I like to say like the third grade boy on the playground. That's like pushing the girl, like, and that's their way of like showing that they like the girl. It's just like kind of like a backwards flirtatious move. But I'll be that way a little bit in conversation because it's just a bit more of like more authentic to my like nature. But it's just mainly being playful. And if it leads to the point where they're like bringing up sex or they're like, saying that, I don't know, occasionally like there will be someone who's like extremely forward. But again, like, and if I feel like that's like too forward for me, then I'm just like I'll just push back in like a joking way. Like I won't read them like the right act where I'm just like, yelling at them. It's more just like, bud, you need to slow your roll a little bit. Like you need to buy me dinner first and then see where this goes or something playful. Because it sets the bar. Men are very, goal oriented and they like to strive and do all those types of things. So, my conversations kind of are structured that way when it comes to dating. Cause they generally want to do the right thing. They just, some know how to do it, some don't, some are somewhere in the middle. So you just give them that direction. Like, you know what? You can just slow down.
Yeah.
Maybe get to know me first.
Yeah. And like I said, just because they bring it up, but yeah, it's just addressing it. And so since this is educational, what would you say for a guy to like, that's listening, if they want to, how can they talk about it without offending people, or just do it and then the girls that like it will like it? Or do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you're a guy and you're interested in a woman on a dating app and she's attractive, like feel free to like shoot out compliments, or even you can push it a little bit and just say like something along the lines of like, oh gosh, you're so attractive, like I don't even know if I'd be able to keep my hands to myself like when I first meet you, or something like silly like that. But it's more there are a lot of women that will get any whiff of flirtatiousness and it will be taken like so wrong. So I feel like men have to tread carefully. Because I feel like slowly women are waking up to the, being more freer in nature, but a lot of them are going to, show resistance and pushback, and it's going to scare them. So for men, if you could just like, compliment more of like, the looks or like personality and things like that, that would be a good place to start. But I think it's more on the side of women where it's not a scary area to go into and like, flirt a little bit with. Like, it doesn't even mean that you're going to do that. Like, it's okay to flirt, and just, if someone's attractive and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, like this guy is super hot, like then don't be afraid to let them know. Like, it's okay. Like, it's not going to mean anything bad. It doesn't even mean you have to sleep with them. It's just like, it's really fun to hear that you're attractive. Like, I don't know anyone who does not love to hear that.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend the other day, and I'm gonna have him on the show, I think too. But just like generally, what he does is he listens to what the woman actually likes, and like asks like maybe her top 3 kind of restaurants, and then does research, finds like a really good one, and then makes reservations, which a lot of guys don't do. So I know you're more of an active person, but he'll make reservations at like a decent like $200 like a nice restaurant, and then make the reservations. Even like, I guess he even orders an Uber potentially for them. So he wines and dines them basically. And he never has an issue like, having them. I don't know. It was like when a woman feels special, like she might give in, even if she's like, feels like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do anything. But if he's that nice and does that much for her, she may even like give in and have sex sooner than she was going to, just because of the way he treats her. So that's another idea out there, guys, like actually make an effort. That gets you somewhere too. So
Absolutely. I mean, when a woman feels appreciated and they're going the extra effort or the extra mile, the effort is very attractive, especially if they're like even attractive too. Like, all that is going to definitely work well. I think you can never go wrong in that route with a woman, is just that effort and being a quality guy. So yeah, I think, speaking on the woman's side, it's, I hear a lot where there's a fear of being, taken advantage of, or being used, or sleeping with somebody too soon. And a lot of that just really brings me back to a powerless place where, I mean, even back to like high school, where, you're thinking like, you're just newly in this world of like, trying to figure out like who to match up with, have a relationship with. And, it's like sex is a scary thing. And it's like, oh, it's something that could be like I could be used for something. But we're grown-ups now, and it's pretty safe to say that we all love sex. Like, it is totally okay to love sex, and it's okay to have it with whomever you choose to have it with, whenever you want, with a relationship, without one. Like, that's totally a-okay. So the idea of you being used for it is actually not going to apply. Of course, in more extreme situations, it would, but not in this case, like where, you're mutually attracted and, you're just like, God. I mean, I've actually had one of those dates where the guy was so handsome and we had the funnest date, like just completely fun, met at a really nice bar in my town. And it was like one of those high-end bars, and it was like dancing and drinks, and it's a street full of like really nice restaurants. So we're kind of like running around town, and then afterwards, like we just walked like half a block to the beach, and it started raining by the pier, and we like had our first kiss. And then I was just like, I was feeling it. I was like, you know what, I'm there, I'm ready. So I was like, and it was just so fun. We had like a great thing off and on for like several years, and it was great. But it's really, the nice thing about being an adult is like really taking ownership of your sexual power and your freedom of choice to choose whoever you want to, and to not feel bad about it. Like, this is life. It's meant for enjoyment. If it was meant to be shameful, then why were our bodies designed the way that they were? I mean,
Yeah.
if this was such a bad thing to do, why were we designed to enjoy something like this? That's
I've even had a couple of people who are religious on here, and they feel the same way. Like, that's how God designed us. So they totally agree that, bringing God into the bedroom is even a thing too. So yeah, no one should be feeling any kind of way about it.
Yeah. I was just going to add on to that, and it's just so great for our health too. Like, it just really makes us feel good, and it does wonders for like our mental health and our physical health. And, these are important needs to us. So to like, to put it in a box and say it's only okay if I'm with somebody in a relationship, which actually sets you up for somebody tricking you into a relationship to get it, because they know that's your angle. Like, oh, this girl's only going to let me in that way if we have a relationship. And then once you do the deed, and then you realize it wasn't that great, then it's like, what else are you going to do? You got to go. Like, it's not going to work out. And then you end up feeling the same thing you're trying to avoid feeling.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we are getting close to the time. I know it's flown by, but if there's any like last minute parting things you want to say, or kind of like sum it up, or even say again how to get a hold of you, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. I think just the last most important takeaway, date like a dude. It's not really like to be like a guy. It's just more taking the principle of having your freedom to do what you like, whenever you like, with whoever you like. And that is, something that we all get to enjoy. It's not just for one gender. It's for every gender, both genders. So, that's really something to keep in mind. And, if there is a challenge with getting on board with that, there is something there that's kind of, been programmed inside that's not allowing you to feel free. So that's really where the work begins, in living your most authentic life, your happiest life, your best life, whatever life you want to call it, like that life that, all of us are well deserving of. So it's worth every bit of effort to do that inner work, to get to that magnetic place where you're calling the shots, you're feeling free, you're feeling untouchable, actually. Like, you just feel like you're in control of your happiness in your life. But yes, please, I invite anyone who's interested in learning more. I am at Date Like a Dude on Instagram. My website is dates, that's plural, dateslikeadude.com. love.blogspot.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on. And if you like this episode, be sure to tell your friends about it and rate it as well. And thank you again. See you next time, guys.
Frank Talk, Sex and Dating educates.